In light of the recent tragedy last month, where a local man was struck and killed while running along Route 110, I thought it would be a good idea to sit down with the chairman of the town's Pedestrian Safety Committee, Chris Barrett, to see if he could pass on any safety tips to walkers, runners, and cyclists. But first, I asked Chris about the scope of the committee and how he got involved.
So the town does the occasional master plan development. I think it was the 2006 master plan. It was shown by the community to the need to improve pedestrian safety in the town of Westford. As a result, the Board of Selectmen created the Pedestrian Safety Committee. I got involved with the committee about 5 years ago. I was looking to get a sidewalk built from my neighborhood to the Bruceman Rail Trail, and through navigating the channels in the town staff and the town hall, found out about this committee, went before them, thought that the work that they were doing was great, and at that time I was also on the Parks and Rec Committee. So it turned out that the Park and Rec Committee also has a liaison to the Pedestrian Safety Committee. So I was asked to act as that liaison, and that was sort of my entry point into the committee, and then a couple of years after that I was asked to be the chair. So that's where we are today. I've been chairing now for I think the past 3 years.
So the town has definitely changed. I mean, since I've been here 20 years now, and I've just seen it grow incredibly. And so as more people come in, obviously the crosswalks and sidewalks and those sort of things need to be added. So WestfordCAT's on Route 40, and they're doing that expansion and that light there. Are there going to be, I believe there's going to be sidewalks going in there, correct?
There will be, yes, of course. So any project that is funded by Mass Highway does include pedestrian safety improvements as well as bicycle improvements. So that is a project which will have sidewalks. Now, they only go a certain distance from the actual center of the project, which is unfortunate. Our goal is that over time, between addressing the lights there as well as other intersections further down on Route 40, that
the Dunstable Road.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We'll continually build out segments of sidewalk at no cost to the town, or very little cost to the town, because Mass Highway is picking that up. But that we will then follow up and try and connect those segments. So anytime there's a road improvement project where we can put sidewalks in, we try and do so. Even as far as the Main Street water main project. Big fight to get sidewalks in there. Ultimately, the residents rallied and decided we want to have some sidewalks, and got some put in. Not the entire length of the road, but we have a nice sidewalk going in there now, which is beautiful, and we see people using it all the time. So that was a great win.
Do you have any other future projects that you'd like to talk about?
Yes. So for, I guess, the first 4 or 5 years of the committee's existence, it was really taking an assessment of what we have and trying to prioritize what sidewalks we needed to put in, as well as crosswalks and other types of pedestrian improvements. And then it was a challenge to get the funding, right? Mm-hmm. Funding's always a challenge. So our first big win was to go forward to town meeting and ask for funding for Plain Road. And our committee's focus has always been to improve the pedestrian infrastructure around our schools. And Nabnasset was an easy choice. There was already a sidewalk on half of Plain Road, and we wanted to include the rest of the Plain Road. So we saw that completed a few years ago. A wonderful addition. People use it all the time. And we've also seen other projects that have happened. Our second one was to extend the missing link of sidewalk from Robinson on Concord Road there. Sorry, 225? Carlisle Road. Yep. When that was huge. I was psyched the other day. My kids went to Robinson, and I was attending the school for some reason, and I saw a father and his daughter walking to school, and I was with my wife. I said, "Pull the car over. I got to talk to them." And so I must have looked like a crazy man. So I run over and I say, "Hey, I'm so psyched to see you using the sidewalk." And he's like, "I love it. It gives me quality time to spend with my daughter. There's an extra 20 minutes in the day that I get to bond with her. We get some exercise, both her and I." And I just thought that was wonderful. So to me, those are the wins that we can get. In addition to those, we've seen other projects like the Tadmuck 110 intersection improvements, in which we saw a nice stretch of sidewalk going up from that intersection up to Neshoba Regional Tech. So with those types of, whether it's intersection improvements or we're working at our own improvement projects from around the schools, we're slowly making a dent. I'm really hopeful that when we redo Boston, that's a massive project. but it's also a huge need for the community to have a connector from town center down to the Route 10 corridor.
Yeah, it only goes partially, doesn't
It does.
Where does that sidewalk stop there?
Crown Road.
Crown Road,
Yeah.
right.
So we're
Yeah,
hoping...
that would be great to go right down to Cornerstone Square. And
It's amazing. Today people navigate that hill with the curves, and in some really crazy weather, you see people walking up that road, sometimes towing suitcases behind them. I don't know whether they're walking up to the B&Bs down from the 110 corridor or whatnot, but to see that improved would be, I think, a huge win for the community. So we are undergoing the process right now of submitting this, submitting the Boston Road project through the TIP process, the Transportation Improvement Program, and that would be hopefully a state-funded project. It's not quite there yet. We're doing the 25% design. And we've had a meeting with the Boston Road abutters and saw a really strong level of support to see improvements there. So that was super encouraging, and we
Great.
hope that level of support continues and we can capitalize on using this water main and road reconstruction project to add pedestrian safety improvements as well.
perfect time to do it. It's already being ripped apart. And
It really
Yeah.
does help the town out if we can
Sure.
do it in tandem with some of these other projects. It saves a lot of money.
So let's segue
Yeah.
into the tragedy that happened with the runner recently over by Technology Park Drive and 110. You talk about people navigating curvy roads and along those lines. Do you have some tips on pedestrian safety, things that pedestrians can do to keep themselves safe?
Absolutely. So in addition to the infrastructure aspect of improving pedestrian safety, there's an educational component. And Pedestrian Safety Committee has been working with the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School group to try and bring educational programming to our schools. So there's a program that the state runs for second graders and third graders on pedestrian and bicycle safety. We've had some mixed success with that due to turnover within Safe Routes to School personnel, but we are hopeful that we can either get them to return or to get our public safety officers to step in. Our focus is to try and educate our youth, because I think that's where we can really make a huge difference. They'll come home, they'll talk with their parents and say, hey, Mom and Dad, this is what I learned at school today. And if a parent hasn't gotten that training themselves, this is a great way for them to understand some of the rules of the road, which are important. And at those training sections, what they typically talk about are some of the things that use the infrastructure that's there. If there's a sidewalk, use the sidewalk. If there's not a sidewalk, make sure that if you're walking or running, you're facing traffic. That's a really important aspect so that you can be aware of the oncoming traffic. If you're biking, you're supposed to be traveling with traffic. They talk about using bright clothing. Okay, if you're running, you may want to have on a safety vest, and this can be a mesh high visibility vest in the summertime to a more thicker vest in the fall, because this is really the time in which it's a beautiful time to run, but it gets dark early, and you need to make sure that that visibility is there so that you don't get hit by a car, unfortunately, when it starts to get dark out. The other things that you can do is to use safety devices like these little flashers. So this is actually a combination bike flasher, but also you can use it running. It has a little clip on the back, so it can clip onto your back, and you can just have this turned on, and it can also flash like that. So these are really useful. If you're on a bike, I would also encourage the use of one of these, not just during the nighttime or the dusk time, but you'll see more and more cyclists are now using this during the daytime. Just like our cars now are equipped with safety headlights that turn on when the car turns on, having this on, particularly when it's in a mode where it's flashing, can really increase your visibility during the daylight hours. So those are two really nice things to have, whether you're running or biking. Of course, if you are biking, you need to make sure that you're wearing a helmet. You need to make sure that your bike has safety reflectors on. Those are the minimums, right? I think. But these are really nice additional extras if you can, make them work in your workout schedule. And for kids, the Safe Routes to School also talks about parking lot safety, and we've had some tragedies in our parking lots recently.
Years ago, right?
Exactly. So I thought that was really good. They talk to kids about the dangers of being in parking lots, talking about you don't just run out between cars. There's a peeking. I forget exactly the way they teach it, but you peek out first and then you look both ways, that type of thing. We go over how to use crosswalks. So the expectation is that cars will stop for you in crosswalks. Well, that's not always the case. You need to be
true.
aware that you need to, when you're hitting that crosswalk, you need to look both ways. You can't stop and bend over and pick something up, which surprisingly you think, oh, nobody would do that. But if you drop your cell phone, which again you shouldn't be using when you're on these streets, you end up looking down, and then that's when a car can come and get you. So you need to be aware when you're crossing the crosswalk, both sides. Keep yourself heads up, looking both directions. So they make sure that the kids are aware of that. I think we talked about the high visibility in clothing. They also talk about making sure that taller people are on the outside of the sidewalk and shorter people are on the inside of the sidewalk. Again, raising visibility. So if you're with a parent, they should be on the outside so it's easier for oncoming traffic to potentially see them, which I thought was an interesting way of putting it. So I think that program is really, really great. I can remember back when I was a kid, having that program done for me. I think it was a safety officer that came into the school auditorium, and it made a lasting impression with me. I think one of the things that we face today, not just within our cars, but also on the roads, whether we're walking or biking, is the technology. So we talked a little bit about cell phones, earbuds. So if you're on the streets, everybody likes to run with earbuds in, or a lot of people do. You've got to keep I'm not going to be naive to say, don't run with those.
Right,
People are going to run with it. But
exactly.
keep it at a low volume. Be aware of your surroundings. If you're facing traffic, you're better off than if you're running with traffic. A recipe for disaster is running with traffic with headphones in. You're totally oblivious to what's coming behind you. So I would encourage people to make sure that they're using those responsibly. Again, kids have to wear helmets. That's an important thing, whether you're on a scooter or a bike. Make sure that you have that helmet on. That's really critical. Making sure that they're not texting or using cellular devices, just like in a car, having it when they're on a bike, whether it's Pokemon Go and they're looking at their screen. Next thing you know, they're off and they're broken something or hit somebody. So I encourage them to maintain full awareness of their surroundings.
It's wonderful advice.
Yeah,
and certainly useful. I see a lot of people that do not do those things. So hopefully we can pass this along to those that are on our streets of Westford. And I thank you so much for joining us and for heading this Pedestrian Safety Committee. It's a wonderful addition to Westford.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
All right.
The flashing safety devices and headlights can be found at any local bicycle shop. They can also be found online. If you'd like more information on pedestrian safety or would like to learn more about Westford's Pedestrian Safety Committee, go to the town's website at westfordma.gov and search for the Pedestrian Safety Committee. Or you can email Chris at cbarrett@westfordma.gov. For WestfordCAT, I'm Patty Stalker.